Good evening. This is Wednesday, September 28th meeting of the Community Preservation Act Committee. As a preliminary matter, please note that this meeting is being recorded and the attendees are participating by video conference. Accordingly, please be aware that other folks may be able to see you. Anything you decide to screen share on your computer, anything you broadcast will be captured and recorded. We'll confirm that there's a quorum. MJ
I'm here.
and Wayne,
Yep. Here.
welcome. Julie
Here.
and Eloise.
Eloise has phone problems. So she's here. She can hear us, but she can't. We can't hear her because of how her setup is.
And I'm here. So we have a quorum. With that, I'll call the meeting to order at 7:40. The open meeting of the Community Preservation Act is being conducted remotely, consistent with Governor Baker's executive order of March 12, 2020, due to the current state of emergency. Specific information and guidelines for the remote participation by members of the public can be found on the Town of Berlin's website. The governor orders suspends the requirement for the open meeting law to have all meetings held at a publicly accessible physical location and allows and encourages us to participate remotely. We're using a Zoom platform, and if you want to participate, the sign-in information is on My Town Government under the Town of Berlin. Please speak clearly so accurate minutes are recorded. Wonderful. And is there anything anybody anticipates that needs to be added to the agenda in addition to what we've already posted? Good. So minutes from August 31st, if everybody had a chance to look at those?
September 20th.
And do we have a motion?
Jamie, they were the September 20th. Are you on the right? You have the right agenda?
September 20th, that's
Yeah.
right. September 20th.
I
Do we
move.
have
I move to accept the minutes of September 20th as submitted.
Thank you. In a second.
A second.
Any additions or corrections? Roll call, so we'll do that again. MJ,
Aye.
Wayne,
Aye.
Julie,
Aye.
Eloise is abstaining, and Tim, aye. And we have no bills to pay. So we're square on that. And we want to talk about the plan. Who wants to go first?
June.
June wants to go first? That would be a nice thing. We could let June go first, and then she can escape if she wants.
Tim, I worked on additions and a little bit of a modification when I got home from my afternoon meeting, and I have 2 Word docs on my desktop that can be shared. I sent them to you just like minutes ago, and I sent them to Carolyn and to Maureen, but I don't think Maureen she can't get those. Who does the screen
Correct,
share?
because
Am
I
still-
can't, yeah, I'm on my personal laptop. I can't access anything in the office until.
I've never screen shared before, but if you could help me with that, then we
Wayne
can.
will.
It's
Okay.
easy. So just tap on the green share screen at the
Yep.
bottom.
Yep,
And then when you do that, it's gonna show you like a number you're, if you have more than one screen, which one you want to show, wherever it's showing, then click on that picture or whatever, and then hit share down in the bottom in the right-hand corner.
Hmm.
That makes sense?
It says select a window or an app.
Right, so select the window where your document is up on your screen.
It's not up there yet.
Oh, well, whichever one you want to put it on, you can pick that.
So first
First, open the document.
okay.
Is that Big Ben?
I have that same chime. Luckily, mine's not, I'm
I
not in
have-
that room.
I just had my grandmother clock fixed. So now it strikes every quarter hour. Which is what it used to do when I was a little girl.
Oh, great.
Okay, now I
So
have,
you have it open?
it's open.
Okay, so now on that where it says pick the window you want to share, find that one. It's probably not that many, it's probably one. Hopefully it's there. There you go.
Huzzah!
Is it up there? Oh, it is. Okay. I tweaked our original paragraph that Elaine did for us. It's really just wordsmithing. I don't think I changed, the content. And I put my changes in blue and lined through what she had instead. It's pretty short. If you just want to read it and see if it reads better than what we had. What do you think? You need more time?
How's everybody all set?
Looks good to me.
Other thoughts? I like it. It's cleaner.
Yeah. I think it's just a little bit better expressed.
No, I like it.
Okay, and then I did a little page of what we were funded, the
Mhm.
projects we were funded for. Now let me see if I can get that up.
Okay,
So let's see, now I go back to,
All you have to do is open it up on that same area. You don't have
Okay.
to change or share. You can just close it like you would the document and then open the new one.
stop share.
Yeah.
Okay, now I have to go and get my other document. Oh, here it is. Okay, now share. Now, where is it?
Always the mystery.
Oh, here we go. Okay, now this is a little wordy because I just did this about 6:45. So if you find it unnecessarily wordy, I'm happy to condense it or get rid of parts of it.
So in that second one, can I just ask the question? So those funds have
Sure.
not, so you've only expended 30,000 of the 100,000?
Well, actually, we've paid one invoice for $877 and some cents to Dan Barton. That's the only invoice he's given us so far. So out of all that money, we've only expended $877 and some cents. But I expect we'll be getting another invoice pretty soon, and there will be a lot to come because he's guiding us. I'm not certain that he will go the whole way with us. It may be that once the actual specs and documents are ready, when it's time to do all those nuts and bolts things, it may be that we will have to be offloaded to an architectural firm that will do that. We're not quite clear whether.
What does STM mean in front of November?
We're in town meeting. or
Special.
Special town
Oh,
meeting, sorry, yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, I was almost thinking that maybe those should be spelled out because, well, I figured it out. I wasn't sure that that
You-
was
Yeah. I
going
would
to be
spell- I would
obvious to
spell that
everyone.
out.
Oh.
Reading it.
Now it makes sense, but without that, I wasn't thinking about it.
I think that encapsulates what you've done and intend to do. I think it's clear.
I can fuss with it some more. It's, my best effort after.
Well, the thing to
Yeah.
remember is that this is still a draft. And I apologize for this phone here. This is still a draft. And after we have the public hearing, we put it to bed. So if you want to make some additional tweaks between now and the time we have the public hearing, and then we have the hearing, we can add those in at that point. Because what we need to do is the public hearing's been posted on, it'll be posted in the item on Friday, and it says that the plan is available at the town clerk's office or online. And so we need to have that document there for that by the end of the week, which, Maureen will add any of these changes that we're talking about tonight, and then we'll post that. Then between now and the hearing, if you see other things you want to change, write those down, and then when we have the hearing, we can make those modifications.
Okay. Do you think, I need to say how much we've expended from the Bullard House money?
I don't know, what do people think?
I mean, this is the report. Is this the report?
Right.
I mean, to me, there's a difference between appropriated or whatever. So I mean, if it's, if you have a budget, you have a planned element and how much is expended, I think it just helps people understand where you're at with stuff. I mean, if the commitment for, to the design or whatever, I mean, if the commitment for architectural services $30,000, then, I think it's fine to put it there, and then you can show how much of that's been expended. But at least it earmarks how much of that, and then people will understand that the rest, the remaining $70,000 is for, structural rehabilitation. So I think it's good to be clear.
Well, and to be consistent, we've included the 2,500 as expended up in the $5,000.
Right, so I think it's good to show appropriated, designated, expended. I think like that, even if we could do those not to make your life worse, June, but I'm just saying, but if, or maybe Maureen could help with that, but I think that would be a good thing. We talked about, I don't know how it would be good to make sure in all the sections where we're talking about that, it's consistent. So if there was a little grid with 3 columns in each one that talks about appropriated, designated, expended, I think it will make it really clear, because it's always hard sometimes to read narrative and
Oh, it is. It is.
suss out what exactly it is. I mean, you could even shorten it further to say, you know, funds have been appropriated, designated, and expended as shown in the chart below. And here it is. And it's
Yeah.
self-explanatory. And you could have you'd have a note column if you wanted to, you know, give a further description. But I think people respond better to charts, in all honesty.
Yes, no, that would be great.
I don't know if the others
It's a little, this one is a little, the Bullard House one is, we amended the original 100,000 that was that was appropriated in November of 21, so that it would include fees for an, you know, for an architect, but the money, the additional $100,000 that was appropriated in May also includes architectural services.
Oh, so
So-
is that two? Oh, so there are two different appropriations. So the budget's 200,000 total.
That's right.
Yeah,
So
see,
I'm-
I don't get that reading that. That's why like
Yeah.
something. it
It's
has
hard,
both,
it's hard to,
Yep.
I guess I'll need to. I didn't want to get into how much we took from undesignated funds and that applied to all CPA projects, and the designated funds that are just for historic preservation. I tried to avoid that. But
I think it's fine for you not to be that specific here. If we're gonna be that specific, we could do that with a chart that we'd create
okay,
for the front of the plan, perhaps. And do it that way, and that way you don't have to end up. And that's gonna be a chart like Wayne is talking about. So to include your figures here in terms of, allocated.
from which,
expended
yeah,
on
okay,
on a single line, that would probably be appropriate if you can make that change.
sure. If we get let's see, this is just minutia, but if we get another invoice before the hearing, I should probably add that on as an expenditure. How close?
Well, we've talked about this, and was this a report for fiscal 22? Or is this a report for the date we finalize it? I think it's a report for fiscal 22.
Sense.
Maureen and I talked
Oh,
about that.
yeah, see, Tim, if it's a plan, isn't it usually and that's why you have the public input, so it's
Right.
what you're thinking will start happening next year, so that's why
Oh, so
I'm
the-
thinking,
I
think it's the plan for 23, and last year's plan should have been for 22,
For
but
22.
I don't know that for a fact.
Hmm.
Like, I can, like, because when you do your annual town report, you're reporting on the last 12 months behind you.
Right.
But a plan, like if you were doing like your open space or your master plan, it's in front of you. So I'm thinking that this is both.
So if when we include a section like this is looking back. And
Right.
the other text is looking forward. So June's first document is the vision, and this is a report on what happened in fiscal 22.
Yeah.
So
But
actually, June, you didn't expend any money probably before the end of the fiscal year 22.
Let's
Of
see,
the-
July 1st.
You You,
Yeah, actually, we didn't expend that 2,500 until 23.
okay,
And the only money we would have expended in 22 would have been the $500 for the inventory imaging.
okay.
So,
Does that make sense to folks?
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a good discussion about how you lay it out. So I think, you know, we haven't seen all the others yet. I mean, we have seen them, but I think it's because here it's saying fiscal year 2023, and then it says annual town meeting. Now I understand. It's talking about the annual town meeting this year. So, but then in that section, it's talking about past stuff. Am I misunderstanding that? I guess it's like I'm thinking about like what Maureen was just saying. If there's going to be a section that's going to talk about, you know, capturing what's been done overall, I think that's what we talked about, correct? That we want this
Right.
plan to show everything that's been done with CPA. So there's like that historical part. So, you know, if you're going to have like a recap of 2020 fiscal year 2022, then maybe some of these figures, because that are under this heading of fiscal year 2023. Sorry, June, I'm hacking this out. They seem to be, you know, retro versus then if you're going to talk, this fiscal year 2023 is the one that's going to end next June, correct?
Right,
So under that type of a heading, you would say like, this is what we plan to be doing, you know, in the coming year, expending, you know, finish spending, you know, whatever it's going to be on architecture. And, you know, I don't know if you're going to get beyond that in 2023, but just so it's clear what the expenditure of those appropriated funds are going to be. I don't know. I mean, I'm not trying to make it more complicated, but I'm just making those comments based
Well,
on,
you know,
based on,
what we do now, you know, we'd like to have consistent for the next time. So it's good to get it ironed out now, I would think.
yeah. But do you know what I'm saying? Does that make sense, Tim and others, like because that fiscal year 2022 up above
right.
is talking about what was done, but then like in 2023, you're still talking about the appropriations that happened in the prior. So I guess I would make the FY 223 to be talking about expending, you know, the funds. That's where I think a chart is helpful to, or could, in that when I mentioned a chart, Tim, do you think that the chart at the beginning is going to capture everything that's in each of these individual pieces or not? It doesn't need to be redundant. It doesn't need to be put here if it's going to be put at the beginning.
I think we could look at that chart at the beginning and make it more robust, so it does accomplish what we're trying to accomplish here. So it ends up being this fairly straightforward, easy to find explanation through a chart of what did we vote, what did we, you know, commit, what's been expended. And then people really have a handle on that.
So Tim, I'm thinking that this is your plan for 23.
Right,
And here's the confusion. This is why, because whatever you receive in May approval, you can't start spending until July 1st anyways.
right,
And it is a little odd because this kind of runs from January to December, like your town report, not on the fiscal year. But I think like this time next year, we'll be doing the 24. But June should keep in, because of where you guys started and how you kind of had that, you know, that kind of strange launch. This should be all 23, but it will grab everything from 22 and 21. And then that way forward, you'll be clean.
hmm
And then when you get to that, we've kind of put together a little chart. Just tell me how many headings you want and we'll just fill in the boxes, I guess.
yeah.
That's,
And we'll look at that chart a little later.
Can I just make a comment? Because Maureen just said something about the annual report being just the calendar year. So are we going to represent fiscal year 2022, 23, but only report on things that are within the calendar year? I'm just clarifying because of what she just said.
Yeah, say
so,
that,
but your calendar year will still grab fiscal 23 stuff. It's the way the fiscal year that messes things up. So like, when you do your annual town report, you will talk about the fact that this month of September, you worked on your fiscal 23 plan.
huh,
Because that's literally what you're doing in the January 1st to December 31st. But it's the fiscal stuff that makes you kind of wonky because of because it's not regular calendar year.
Well, but okay, but that gets to the point of what Tim was talking about. What do you include? Because June was just asking, do we include these invoices? And he was just saying no, because we're only going to talk about what was in fiscal year ending 22. So do we really?
Yeah, I think you should include them, I guess is what I was trying to say. And try to not think as much about your fiscal year when you're doing this plan. Try to think about your calendar year, like annual town report. But still call it, but this will be what's going to be going in, like when you're ending this and then you're going into your next year. So like last
So-
year's plan should have been 22. This year, like this time last year, I think would have been for planned 2022. And then when time marches on, you'll be able to review your plans and see how successful you were up against what you stated. And I think the plan, Tim, if I'm recalling correctly, you want to try to start getting capital and planning board more involved in discussions with this, so that the taxpayers' monies are going to where it needs to go. But it's
right.
just because you're at the beginning, it's difficult to kind of know where the jump off spot is.
Yeah, I'm just confused about the timeframes. That's
Yeah, it's confusing.
more confusing.
So let's think about that. If I was writing a town report, the year I'd be writing for would be complete. Right?
Yeah, January through December, correct.
I'd be writing it after the year is ended.
Mhm.
So in this case, if we're writing a plan, and this is, we were working on the plan last year about the similar time, actually. Is the plan for a vision? It is a vision. It's supposed to include things that we anticipate doing, so that we've projected those. And then when we go to town meeting and say, this is something that we've approved, it's because the Historical Commission or the Conservation Commission has included it in their vision. They've looked into the future and said, this is something that they wanted to do. And as a result, we're comfortable with funding it. They didn't pull it out of thin air necessarily.
Was there really a plan kind of in that sense? I mean, it's not like we're, when think of a plan that a particular committee or whatever has, that sort of goals they have, whereas our goals are fine. We're not asking historical to bring something to us, or asking recreation here. I mean, we call it a plan, but we're really more on the receiving end of what other people's visions are, whether it is the literal committees or whether it was, a private interest.
But I think our goal is to have those entities articulate what it is they want to accomplish and include it in their section of the plan. So it's not a report, in this part anyway. It's a plan. Now, I think there's also a responsibility for us to, in our plan, include a report section that makes clear what was accomplished. And so then the question is, what time period are we trying to include in that report section? You know, we're saying this is what happened at a town meeting in the past, and these are the funds that have been approved at town meeting for certain uses, and so far these have already been expended. So are
Yeah,
we
I
just doing that in the front of the text? I mean, the front of the document, you know, as a quick reference?
I don't think you want to get into a cycle where you keep referencing the same amount that was appropriated if it's being spent over multiple years. I think that's going to get confusing to people. Maybe.
Right.
So I mean, if the chart does that work and say, you know, of the appropriated funds we expended, blah, you know, maybe talk about the total budget that's been appropriated. And you mean, I can see what Jim's doing here with, you know, there's two different line items, obviously.
Right. Okay, well,
And I'm
again, this is a draft. And what we can do is, I can talk to Linda Galoni from Hudson and just say, talk to me, Linda, about how you approach your plan, because I know she reports in her plan what they've done. You know, what actions were taken. So I can ask her how she goes about that and what the format is that she utilizes. And then because this, again, this is the draft that we're exposing to the public for this hearing, but we don't need to. It sounds like we've got some good questions, and I don't think we're going to resolve exactly how we want to approach this evening, probably. But we can do some research and see what some other people do. Is that all right with folks?
I should just leave it the way it is until we have a better grasp of.
Yeah, I
what
think
it
you've
should
got the
look like.
component. I think you've got the parts. It's just, we need to figure out how we want to present it.
Yeah, I mean,
Okay,
I think it's written all fine and everything.
it's
Yeah,
wordy. It's kind of wordy.
Well, yeah, that's why I wouldn't wordsmith it, because I think, you know, you could just make a decision that, you know, under each element, instead of like getting into the, I mean, if the bigger chart is going to talk about the timeframes, Tim, of when things were appropriated, you know, then you know, then each of these projects you could just have without having to get into this whole discussion about, I mean, the first one is cleaner because it's just saying appropriate. Well, I think it's just, we have appropriated, designated, you know, and then
Expended.
you know, it's like a thing, and then the little narrative after that to just talk about that, you know, because I mean, I don't know, maybe I'm just being crazy.
No,
No, it's important because that's how
I
people
mean,
will understand. what we're doing.
maybe as we look at the other sections and how, you know, those were done, maybe it'll become clearer.
I have a question that I don't think fits in here, but
go ahead.
I'll go ahead anyway. The actual imaging of artifacts, I had estimated $4,500, which was a pretty good estimate for what we thought should be photographed. But to be honest, it was so much work for Barry and myself to decide on the 25 or so artifacts that we got ready for the photographer, that we are thinking that we would rather use whatever's left, which is about $2,000, in creating the platform that will make those available. Do you think that's something that we could repurpose in an article in the future?
So what you're saying is you've expended 2,500, you got 2,000 of the 4,500 left. You don't anticipate expending that for this at this time. So that money, as I understand it, that money, where does that money go? Does that money go back to the commission's
Offers.
10%?
If that's where it came from, it should go back.
If
I
a
mean,
project,
that would be fine because we could just construct, you know, a request, an application, we could apply for
right,
what we would rather use that money for, which is the platform to make it all available.
and the point is that even if it didn't, you'd still end up with enough money in that account to go ahead and make a proposal for an adjustment. But you don't anticipate spending the other 2,000 for any more of this type of work, though?
Well, not at
mean,
this,
it-
I
it
mean,
can-
not at the stage we're at now, you know,
It
it's
doesn't-
just,
This doesn't need to be expended in a certain period of time necessarily. I mean, we'll ask for an accounting, but if you were to carry this over into fiscal 23 or fiscal 24, and you did this effort with some additional money to work on the platform, and then that meant that you'd spend the 2,000 on more of this effort,
later.
that'd be fine.
Well, in any event, if the 2,000 wasn't spent, wouldn't there need to be an article or something for it to go back? Like, wouldn't it just kind of sit with the historical commission without a, you know, an article at town meeting closing out the matter?
I have to do some research on what happens to funds that aren't expended. I know I've read it.
Well, I mean, with non-CPA stuff, you know, if we had a town meeting approved $50,000 for some vehicle for the highway department or whoever, and only 40,000 got spent, doesn't that usually money going back has to be decided at, like, and it's a perfunctory vote. It's not like anyone says, no, don't take the money back, but doesn't money going back have to go through town meeting anyhow? Close it out.
It tends to go into the same coffers, though. It's, I mean, if it's a budget line item, it's just that they don't expend it, but this is something that comes out of a fund or is designated. So it's a little bit, I think it's different. But I mean, to just comment on what you were saying, Tim, I think that plan makes sense, because if, I mean, obviously it would seem that you're gonna get I mean, sounds, June, like you're shifting gears, like, okay, you got these images, but now your priority is get the tool done to actually be able to share those images.
That's right.
So it would make sense to say, you know, appropriate a different amount to get that done and keep this amount that's already been appropriated, since you're allowed to keep it. You know, if the plan is, we're gonna do these, now we're gonna create the platform, and then once we're done the platform, now we're gonna go back and digitize some more items to do it. You know, why go through that whole rigmarole of back, forth, back? I mean, that doesn't.
Yeah,
seem-
yeah. Yeah, no,
I
I
agree with
agree.
that.
I agree. I guess the question then is, does it just go, can it be held that long until
You
we
can-
get enough energy to to do it all over again?
Aren't we the ones, as a Tim, that have to basically say, okay, now we want to know?
Yeah, I think at some point we'll say, you've held this too long, you haven't spent it, it needs to be returned.
Okay,
But I don't foresee that happening in the short term, and I think you'll probably find a way to
spend it.
maybe
Yeah.
assign some additional funds to create this platform that you're talking about, and then, you know, utilize this money to further that effort without
Okay.
having to modify the warrant article at all or the vote, so.
Okay, that's fine.
Because the 100,000 and the additional 100,000, that's gonna take you a number of years to expend, and I can't envision the committee here saying to you, after 2 years, you haven't spent it yet, you got to give it back. I mean, that's not going to happen either.
No.
Okay, that's good.
All
Um,
right,
I'm happy.
we're happy that you're happy.
Yeah.
Who wants to go next? Julie's going to go next then.
June, you wanna click stop sharing your screen.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay, now let's see. Stop share. Okay, there.
Nice job. Julie, are you able to share, or should somebody else share what you sent them?
Well, what I sent, you guys have is not my updated version.
Oh, okay.
So, and I can't access anything on my device. I'm on a different device, so. So that's,
Didn't you send us an update? You've updated it since the update?
no, I don't know where that came from. I think that was old. That was originally the one I had sent last week.
But that's last week's.
Mhm.
And you want to modify that significantly?
Yeah, I mean, I looked at what other towns had done on their recreation plan, and it was just more, theirs were more polished, it was more detailed.
Okay.
I love the idea, Wayne, of the chart. Putting it in a chart form too, I think that's more readable. Which we discussed, and keeping it consistent with the other groups.
Yeah.
I like the idea too, so I'd be interested to see what the chart's gonna look like.
Okay.
So once my computer stops
So
doing what,
how, let's say that, Maureen, what's your schedule? Tomorrow, you're gonna package any of these changes that we've got into a version that we then put on the website?
Well, Mr. Wheeler, as you all been talking, I've been thinking might come in on Friday instead of trying to do it after work tomorrow. Just so, because I'm one of these people that are very paranoid about getting anything on a website or viewing for public that isn't absolutely, looked over and done a couple of times, like kind of thing. So what I'll probably do is, matter of fact, I just texted my husband. I said, I think I'm going to go to work on Friday. So you might have to get the dog walker for Friday. But anyways, yeah, so I'll come in on Friday, and that gives, June, if she needs to do things. It sounds like we're going to definitely tear apart the project ongoing list. So then that will just give me a fresh start. So I'll just come in on Friday.
Okay, so Julie, what you've got, if you can get that to everybody tomorrow or whatever, then
yeah, I'm
Well,
hopeful it's resolved.
we'll include that new presentation in the draft that we throw together. And that way people will see that updated version rather than the old one,
Okay.
right?
Can I ask one question on that before, am I gonna add to that, this chart that's being discussed? Maureen, do you have one that you're presenting to us tonight?
Yeah, I sent it, it was in the attachments to I might be able to share myself too. Oh, you know what? I don't know if I have it at home. Let's see.
Because I'll then add that into mine.
So are you seeing that, folks, or not?
No,
So MJ, do you have the,
Oh, I see it. But I don't know if I can. Yeah, MJ, if you have it in your email.
I had sent it to I sent it Monday night.
okay.
It's that table com.
Yeah, I think it says table.
Okay.
It was, I mean, clearly it was pretty basic. It was just projects. Tim and I reviewed it on Monday afternoon, and then he said, you all just kind of look at it to see what you actually wanted to state.
I see, it now. Okay.
In progress.
Because like, one thing sometimes, like, I think I might have seen this on another towns, they'll actually put the contractor who won the bid kind of thing. That might be something that may be there, or it might be just in the body of the categories on the plan. Like, it all depends on how detailed you want to get.
Yep.
But Julie, so you can send that to me at the town email, and then I'll marry your stuff in on Friday.
Okay, that sounds great. I think it would benefit people reading this to include. I know we have the funding amount listed, but there's no big picture there, like what the
Yeah.
big amount is.
Well, you know what might be interesting with this, in all honesty, is if there are going to be sections looking at this, Maureen, that, if the historic stuff was all together, like it is sort of done here, but like almost have subtotals,
Uh-huh.
so you could have a subtotal under each section and have a grand total at the bottom. So you could like see how much is what you're losing in this is that, you'd have to sort of do your math, like how much is, so historic, which also it's not on here, this is where I don't know based on what June was just sharing. All I'm seeing is $100,000, the Bullard House, but then there was another 100 that she just mentioned. So, if this
Well,
is,
yeah, and I think it was MJ, I think it was you at the last meeting that almost suggested that two tables exist. One kind is showing the amounts that would also include the state matches. And that might be a good place to be able to demonstrate that. So then you would get down to what your buckets are.
Yeah, well,
I think that was you, yeah.
the introduction section to the plan before had in it, well, what we had for money. So that was something that I was looking at needing to update for, but if have a table, then we could, look at multiple years and whatnot.
Yeah.
I mean, it could all go on one, but I thought that was what you guys thought last time, was maybe do the two tables. So one would kind of show the monies in and out and where your buckets end and you match. And then this would be more project specific.
Yeah, I think that's a great idea. I like that, Maureen.
That's MJ. That wasn't
Yeah.
me.
That's good. Two tables, that's a very good idea.
So what Hudson does is they throw a chart in the beginning, like on, one of the early pages, that says this is the town surcharge that's collected, the state trust fund distribution, the total revenue, and the percentage. And then they have a running total, and that's for all the years that they've had CPA. So they have that single chart that gives a quick history of CPA total revenue, not what's allocated. Then they end up with, they have every town meeting, May 5th, 2008, all the town meetings and what the project was, what the amount was, and where the money came from. I mean, did it come from the open space reserve or the budgeted reserve? So that's what June was talking about. She didn't want to get into that in the body of her text. And so that's something that Hudson does at the beginning of the report. And it's a running document. So it shares that information. And so someone could go back and historically look at every project that's been funded.
Yeah.
And then they have, like, library roof project expended $103,312 and turned back $6,687. So they have comments about that in the that part of the report. So
just-
that's interesting.
So when they get to the sections of their report that, you know, for example, historic is talking about, are they recapping all that information, or are they only talking about the money that's in play, like right in that period of time?
So under the
mean,
community housing section, for instance, they have their goals, their minimum criteria, additional criteria for housing and that's it. They don't report in that. That's sort of, this is our vision for the future in the body of the plan. And then in the beginning is this reporting that talks about everything that's already taken place, essentially. So that helps clarify if we wanted to use that as a model.
I mean, if it makes sense, you don't need to reinvent the wheel. I mean,
Right. And then recreation resources, same thing. A series of goals, the criteria under which they, you know, how they decide how to prioritize the quality of a proposal. And basically those reports are similar. I mean, those parts of the plan are similar to ours. They're about, you know, page and a half long.
So would it make sense that if the chart up above is actually captured, like it's like what June just wrote was capturing a bunch of projects, which
Right.
sounds like they would be captured in that major chart up at the top and deal with all the numbers and all that stuff. So then if you're going to say these are all your goals, you could have one smaller part that just talks about like what you know, what the status is, because that's not going to be in a chart of like, you know, we've worked and we've accomplished this and we're doing this next piece and this is the next part of the project that we think is going to happen in the next year or whatever, or I don't know. That's just mine.
Yeah, good. Okay,
Right.
so Julie's gonna send her stuff in as soon as she has a computer that functions.
Yeah.
And Carolyn, did Carolyn send us something?
She did.
Mm-hmm.
Does someone want to share that?
I'm not on my computer where I have it. So.
MJ, do you have what Carolyn gave us?
Hold on.
I was just trying to look for it and I wasn't finding it and I don't know why.
Tim, I think I sent you an email asking, should I forward the email from Julie and Carolyn? So I think it was yesterday that that email went through. with
Oh, it came
Carolyn.
from you. That's right.
Yeah.
Can you see that, MJ?
Hold on.
It's from Maureen.
Yeah, it was yesterday.
Yeah.
It says conservation CPA plan. It was at 10:01 p.m. We're working late morning.
That's messed up.
I think what I'm seeing is like the whole plan. It's
Is that what she included the whole plan and showed her changes? Is that what she
Okay.
did? So you could pull up that up and just go to open space.
okay.
I think
Hi,
what's
June.
I was just gonna get a drink of water. You.
It's all right. Go ahead.
you know, I know he's going to be pulling this up, but this is sort of what I was just. I mean, what she did is what I was sort of referencing is like what she did was give you a narrative about what the project was.
Yeah.
the project and all the money parts and all that appropriation and all that other stuff that June had in hers is really taken care of by a chart. And this really talks about, you know, the detail of, you know, what the piece was, the, you know, so to me, in some ways, and again, this isn't to be on June, but, you know, to talk more about like, what is it, what was the digital, you know, scanning or whatever, like what was that was done for the 25 pieces were done and this was done. And I mean, to me, that's the part that you're not, I guess, I'm talking a lot, I'll shut up.
So then what you're saying is we'd have a chart at the beginning that would show total expenditures, then we'd show, I mean, total, not expenditures, but revenue. Then we'd have a chart that would show commitments on an annual basis. And then in the text, in addition to a vision, we'd have a reporting of what was actually accomplished in a narrative form.
Yeah, you could, but like I'm saying in the original chart though, I mean, I don't know if the Hudson chart showed the, you know, I don't know if we would get into the designated versus expended. I mean, we could decide how granular you want to be if you only care about it when it's expended, but you know, you could put that in next to the project up at the upper part, like this is what was committed to the project. This is what, how they've already outlined it, and this is what's been expended. So I mean, that you're tracking that. I mean, and then just deciding if there's subtotals at a certain point. I mean, if you keep, are we going to keep track of it by, you know, is it just going to be like a, I mean, you know what I'm saying? If you just put it like in a chronological order and everything's mixed together, it kind of gives you a more of a, I mean, because we've talked a lot about the different buckets. So is it better to look at each bucket separately when you're talking about the expenditure? I mean, I think the total revenue parts, I think made sense that you were talking about, but then we could decide how we want to structure the expenditure appropriation part of, you know, underneath it. So, because then you get a picture of, you know, historically you say, well, this is how much their bucket is, you know, that's been committed to them. And then this is how much has been approved out of that bucket. I don't know. I'm still learning.
Well, we are too. That's the nice thing. You're joining us in our infancy still. So any ideas are welcome because we're all on the same page.
I guess for me, I'm just thinking about like, what would I want as a resident? And if you're going to tell me that CPA, I committed to spend all this money, you know, or this part of my taxes to do community preservation, I do want to know, like, okay, this is what got appropriated and track it. I think it makes sense what MJ had said about, you know, the grants, the matching grants and stuff like that, you know, affiliated with those things. But then I'd want to look at it like, I'd want to see, like, I would find it more informative if I'm looking at, these are all the recreation projects that got done. These are all the historical projects that got done. These are all the conservation, whatever. These are open space. These are all the housing things. Because when you mix it all together, it's hard to see a story. But if you present it in each chunk, I mean, in that chart could then either become under each section, you know, instead of putting it at the top, each one could have a chart that goes with that, you know, to say these are all the things that were done in historic, and then there's just a little narrative that talks about this is what's going on right now. But that's how I personally would find it informative to read. Because if all I really care about preservation, not that I would care about all of it, but if my big focus was I care about what the conservation part was, I don't want to necessarily have to suss through all the different other stuff if that's not what I'm so focused on. Do you know what I mean? I don't know if that makes sense to people, but I could see a big chart that just talks about overall funding and that, and then, you know, what was expended in your big total there. And then you could have separate charts, not to make it too complicated, but if we're going to do this, this is the time to do it when we're starting out. So then you have a plan. So, you know, maybe 5 years from now, you could go and say, wow, look at all these historic, you know, projects, you know, and the money and how they've got it. And if there's a, you know, maybe there's a line in there that talks about what their part of the budget is of that got, I don't know. I'd have to just see it better.
Well, my one concern about having it in the separate sections might be that not everything would necessarily neatly fit. So like most of what we have been asked to spend and have gotten approved for spending is essentially by the individual committees, Carolyn put forth something for conservation, Julie from recreation, et cetera. But then something like the AgCom one, uh, you put that in, I guess you would put that in recreation, but it's not quite the same as the straight up recreation thing. So having that, if we're, talking about what has been funded, that kind of it's better in like a chart in the front than it does necessarily in a chart or subchart in the individual section.
So everything's not gonna neatly fit then, okay?
I think as we go along, we're probably going to have more projects that are farther away from these sort of, the specific, groups. We may get something that, it'll fit into, obviously it will fit what is approved for CPA funding, but, essentially everything so far is in from town groups, whereas eventually we may get things that are, more fully private in their organization.
Right. Yeah, in Hudson's case, they're saying that the community garden was the proponent and the project was expansion, fencing and of the garden plot and how much it was and. Yep,
Well, just ideas.
okay. And so what do we see in Carolyn's? Did she highlight what she changed?
Yeah, it's in blue.
Can you increase your screen size at all there, MJ?
Here it
Oh,
is.
here we
Oh,
Oh,
go.
there it is. Yeah. So that's basically a reporting of what was accomplished, right?
Yeah,
So again, it's not necessarily what's the next thing or, I mean, we don't want to be discussing applications that aren't approved or,
No, they just, I mean, in the body of the text that's above it that stays in the plan, they outline what their objectives are and the criteria for selecting a project, the wildlife habitat and greenway connections and all that sort of stuff. So that stays. And then this piece here is a report on actually what transpired.
makes sense.
Which is similar to what June did. But then what we're suggesting is that rather than Hudson's approach of reporting on a given year and the projects that were supported at the beginning of the plan, we'd perhaps include a chart within each of the 3 sections that reported with a chart what the projects were, what was voted and who the proponent, so if it's under rec, or open space, it's going to be a chart in that section. Is
Well,
that
that's
what
what I
you're saying?
That was what I was saying, but just to understand what MJ was saying, I guess those 4, to make sure I'm not misunderstanding something, everything that we approve has to fit under one of those headers, correct?
Yep.
Okay,
So even though it's the the Ag Commission, we're gonna look at it as rec probably.
Okay,
Um,
right, okay, so then it would fit neatly there, so that's why I guess, so to MJ's point, it may not be the actual committee that was the proponent, but
Yep.
if it fits this category, it's gonna show up under there, I guess.
But what, I mean, everything needs to tie to those things, but with something. Couldn't certain things down the line kind of fit multiple things?
Well, sure, you might very well end up with a project where some of the money came from housing and some of it came from open space, and you acquired a parcel of land and 4 acres were going to be used for housing, and they paid for that portion, and the 50 acres in addition were paid by open space. So it's a project that's joint, but I would think that we'd report it separately. You know, we'd say $4,000 was expended out of the, or 10,000, or whatever amount of money out of housing for this acquisition, and the additional funds that came out of open space would be reported under that. We'll have to think about that. But anyway, like Wayne's saying, they're gonna have to fit in one of those 3 buckets. And rec, open space being the same one. Okay.
I mean, I'm just a loud proponent of stuff, so I mean, does it make sense to people to have a separate chart for each category to help it be more organized, to see the story?
As I've thought about it, it makes more sense to me, because I think what you're suggesting is that people can open the book, they're interested in what we've spent on historic preservation, and they find a chart that lists all the projects and that are related to historic preservation that met the criteria and either came out of the designated fund or the fund balance or the budgeted reserve.
Yeah, I mean, in that part about the money could either, you could decide whether that's in the initial, summary chart, or, do we need any of that? Like, what's the total pool that they have working for them? So,
Mhm.
I mean, because that's the thing is, like, if each line item is talking about what's appropriated, where do people then see the summary of, what pool do they have that they've got or that's appropriated, and what's left? And like, even in conservation, I mean, that amount of expenditure plus, I mean, yeah, you don't want to blend the two, but you want to be able to demonstrate that you were able to use this funds to leverage a grant, you know what I mean? I think that's an interesting, it's a little bit of a challenge, but. Does that make sense to you, Julian?
Does it? Yeah.
Jay, you too?
Mhm.
Crash.
Good night.
Well, stop.
I'm looking at Concord's plan now. They do the same thing in the early part. They talk about fund revenues. Then they explain some general guidelines. Information about how funds can be used. And then they go into each section.
Guys, I have to actually get off the call because I have to go pick up my son.
Sounds good.
But I'll read the minutes, but this was really productive, but I'll get you guys over my stuff, hoping, fingers crossed, it is up and going in the morning.
So the next
the
time we meet is the hearing.
Yeah.
Unless people feel that there's an important reason to have a meeting before the hearing, but that's up
So-
to,
So what I'd like to do, if I come in on Friday, I marry everybody's stuff together, I'd like to then send it out to all of you. I wish it was gonna rain this weekend. It's not, but for you to review it over the weekend and give me, and give me the thumbs up, so then we can post it on Monday, Tim, versus Friday.
yep, Monday'd be
So-
fine.
Yeah, so then if we can pull it all together on Friday. So Julie, sorry, but if you could look at it over the weekend, that would be great.
Sure.
Yeah,
No problem.
okay.
Okay.
And-
Better
got
than
it,
having
okay.
another meeting is what I think, so.
And where are we meeting? again? Sure, it's listed somewhere, but,
The hearing's gonna be a Zoom meeting.
oh, it is gonna be Zoom, so it's not an
Yeah.
in-person meeting, okay.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, are you all set, Julie?
Yes, that's great. Thank you so much then, guys. I appreciate it.
Okay, thank you.
All right, have a good.
Now, we want to look at the application.
I don't know who's sharing, I'm just sharing this.
MJ, can you share?
Are there any other updates? So did we get anything in writing about housing?
No,
Okay,
housing will stay where it is.
so that's just, I'm gonna just pull that from the existing plan.
Yep.
And then MJ, you made some changes for dates and everything, so you can send me your.
Well,
doc-
I hadn't actually like physically changed it yet. That's one reason I was wondering. I think I emailed yesterday or something whether we had a working copy on the Google Drive. I mean, I can take the introduction, make those.
Oh, I did see that. You know what? That came to my home email. So I don't have Google Docs, not at work or at home. I
Okay.
don't know if anybody has.
Well, I mean, we have a Google Drive for the committee, and it's
Oh,
still.
okay.
Oh, that was the other half of that, was thinking that we need to get you and get Wayne onto that and remove James and Elaine from that. I think technically Carolyn owns the drive, or I'm not sure whether any of us have the permission or not to change that, but I mean, I can pull up the introduction, make the date changes. There was, the other point was just if we created the chart of what monies we've gotten, because that was something that needed to be updated. Hold on, let me and so like in one we had before in this section, it included what we got for 2000 or including what we got for 21
Right.
or just
Right.
or what the matching was on that. Part of what I wanted to make sure we had last time on the introduction was you know, showing that we got money from having done the 3%, that, you know, that was good, but like, I don't have the figure of what we have for 2022, but if we're having a chart, then that would kind of take care of what part of this was.
Right, yeah, I mean, I think if we go forward with the chart rather than the narrative like this, we can eliminate a section like this and report it in the chart instead.
But other than that, literally, the only other things I changed was like just, scan, okay, this is, needs to be a 2, so I didn't
Yep,
didn't create a document to do that, because it really just seemed like quick, you know, editorial things, and then there's a part where it says how many towns
oh, yeah, we
changed
say
from,
186 or something like that, and it's
it was
now,
187 and it's now 189, so.
Yep.
Yeah, that's where a chart, I think, comes in handy, because then you're not hunting and, verbiage to find these numbers and stuff. It's in a really succinct.
right,
well,
I mean, I think if you're pulling it together, Tim and Maureen, and looking at this stuff, I think it's good to have those written parts by each section, but I think at some point when you're doing these, it's good to have some editorial, take a little editorial license, especially if we're in draft mode. Why not propose that?
right, good,
But you guys want to have the application screen shared, did you?
yes, that'd be good.
Okay,
So I was thinking about the application. Do you think the application needs to be in the plan, Tim?
You mean it can, if it's on our website,
Well, what I mean is, it's like, it's still a work in progress. And
But
if you
just
got,
what-
and if you really want to get it nailed down. I mean, I don't know, I was thinking about that. I don't know why I'm thinking about this, but I'm thinking about this application a lot. You know, I don't know if it needs to be part of the plan, I guess, is my point. I mean,
if our website clearly says, here's the plan and here's the application, then it doesn't have to be part of the plan. It can be a standalone document that people find on our website very easily, probably easier than it would be if it was attached to the plan somewhere buried on the 80th
right.
page.
Because because remember when we were talking on Monday and we were talking, we kind of put that little mini schedule kind of together.
Right,
That might be good for the plan to have that there's the pre-application, and then there's the application eligibility meeting, then there's, the whatever versus the actual physical form.
Yeah, a calendar sense, target dates.
Yeah.
right,
Yeah, a timeline or a flow chart, because in that way, it will always give you the option to keep reworking the application, and people won't use old ones that they'll find in like the plan or something like that.
Yeah, that should be a living.
That gives me that, can you tell I'm an admin? I
Right,
like the
yep.
current form being used, yeah. So that, I mean, that was just a thought after you had left the other day. I was thinking about that, but just wanted to throw it out there. So you could
No, that
actually
makes
make a flow chart with the dates or a timeline or something like that. Did I add that at the bottom? I did, I don't remember.
I think that's. a
Yeah,
good
like
point,
right
though.
there, that was kind of the brainstorm on what actually happens to an applicant.
Yeah, I think that would be good to be in the plan, but it's smart to put it here too. So when you hand out an application, people know like these are the deadlines I have to hit if I want to get funding this year.
Mhm.
Yep. I mean, that stuff can reside in 2 places.
But you guys that was just like a brainstorm. You'll have to, you'll let me know if that wording, change up the wording for who you are.
Good,
Yeah, we had talked about the dates. So whatever dates you guys talked about, I would put those in there now. Because didn't we talk about all those kind of dates last time?
yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so there's the application.
And so maybe November you can, well, I don't know if you guys know if any applications coming through, but maybe you just start this one fresh for anything for 23.
Right.
But
Well,
you would
they-
have those, but you'd have those by December 1st though, right? Yeah.
well, I was at the select board's meeting, and they were saying that they don't necessarily, they don't necessarily think that there's going to be a special.
I didn't hear anything more this week, so you don't think anybody said no?
Brought up Carolyn asked the question. They said
Oh.
right now they don't have anything. Yeah, it's like in Westminster or wherever.
So I spoke with Kristen today and I
Yeah.
said, because Eloise and I had talked about this too, I'd like to see the town say that it's going to have a town meeting each fall. That it's not a bylaw that mandates it, it's just an understanding. And that then the committees can anticipate that and plan for it. So in our case, when we ask Ag Commission to wait, we're telling them that there's going to be a round that they might have access to in the fall, or that the planning board decides that it doesn't have an article ready for the annual, but it's very close. And the fact that it's going to be a town meeting in the fall means we can massage it and tweak it, and we don't have to wait a whole year to finally get it on the docket. So she said she was surprised the town didn't have a town meeting in the fall established as a sort of a normal activity, and that Margaret had left a list of topics that might be included in a special town meeting for the fall. And she was going to go to the selectmen at their next meeting and say, you know, what do you want to do? There's this list. If we think this list rises to the level of importance enough to call a meeting, then they may very well call one. I said I didn't see any point in necessarily holding one just because CPA had one project. That wouldn't be appropriate probably, but if there were other items on the list, and she indicated there may be, then we may very well find that we're going to have a town meeting in December, for instance.
That's good.
What else? What time are you coming in on Friday, Maureen?
I'll probably get there by 8. I'm usually there at 7:45 anyway, so I'll be there. Be there by 8.
I'll be picking corn. How much do you want?
I don't need any corn, but thank you.
So I'll show up.
You know what, I guess really, yeah, the earlier, like I'll get in for 8 and,
So
you
I'll
know,
swing by as soon as I can.
yeah, you know, you can just text me. What am I thinking? I'm thinking max 4 hours, probably.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Finish by
Sweet.
noon.
yeah, by noon.
Okay, so, and I'll swing by and brainstorm a little. And then, like you say, we can throw it around to everybody and then put it on the website on,
Right. Yeah, and I'll look at,
Monday.
well, you mentioned Hudson and Concord, so I'll look at both of those tomorrow. Again, but I guess my big question is on the chart. If you looked at the chart, what are the headings do you all want? Like I put co-applicant in the one that we drafted because you could have, like Tim made you could have a housing and an open space where you'd have 2 applicants, like you'd have the housing people and then someone else you know, that kind of thing. I don't know if that's a necessary column, but if you want to just email me columns that you might think, or just let me know right now, so that, you know, the residents are mostly clear.
So Hudson says proponent, and under proponent, everything under the sun shows up. Park Commission, Historic Commission, Habitat for Humanity, and, you know, an outside group entirely, Department of
Yeah.
Public Works, Town Clerk, Park and Rec, Historic, Municipal Affordable Housing Trust, Community Development, the Fire Chief. So there's, you know, if it's multiple applicants, they just throw them together in the same
Okay.
square.
We can
So it's
do that.
proponent, project, amount, funding. Where it came from. You know,
I mean, I think-
budgeted reserve, historic preservation, or whatever. And so if it's from multiple sources, for instance, the executive assistant asked for library roof repair and rehabilitation. It's repair is,
Is a word you want to stay away from.
yeah, I'm surprised, 110,000.
Yeah.
32 was from historic preservation reserve and 77 was from budgeted reserve. So they just include it right there in the line.
All right, well, I'll look at those. And come up with another chart, but you guys can, you can, obviously, you have 15 minutes before the hearing anyways. So if you can tweak that, or tweak it over the weekend.
And we can tweak it during the hearing too. I mean, it isn't, this is a draft. It's,
Right.
you know, and it's our draft. So it's not just that we're satisfied with it and we're not going to make any additional changes ourselves. We're just looking for the public's thought. I mean, I think I'm comfortable with our making modifications all the way through the hearing process and beyond. So we don't have to put it to bed immediately after the hearing if we don't want. We can decide that, you know, we need another period of time just to keep massaging it. That's fine.
I'm almost looking at the chart that you have, and it's like, I think even like name of project and project description could sort of be merged. You know, so you
Okay.
could have like, you could say Bullard House dash, you know, restoration of foundation, and that way, you know, the column could get a little fatter, but it gives you more space to then add if you want to have funding or, you know, matching grants column, if there's that kind of a thing, or whether you put that in a note or expended, you know, that kind of a thing.
Like I was thinking, because like when when June was talking earlier, how things are going to be done in phases. Sometimes, is this a phase project? It's a check or it's an X, you know, sometimes that's, you know, helpful for a resident to know.
But that's why I think if you have a funding amount of 100,000 and now she's got $30,000 designated, and, you know, and then there's an undesignated, at least you're going to see the whole funding amount and how much they've, you know, and we could decide if we want just an expended part or a designated part. I mean, she could, I mean, maybe that's too much for an initial chart, but I think, you know, that way it helps you kind of keep that part of, you know, if they don't spend the whole amount, you get to see, and then is the project status complete, whatever, you know what I mean?
Yeah, that's, yeah.
And then you can have that sort of reconciliation there, but that would be my thought. I mean, even applicant, co-applicant, I mean, you could put, like Tim said, proponents, and then you could just put them all under one column.
Yeah, status is important because sometimes you might not even have it started yet for
Right.
whatever reason. So
Right,
like
right.
started, complete, changed, or like stopped. I don't know what the word I would use, but something like that, like withdrawn, you know. Like sometimes if you can't make, like we had an example here in Littleton, we had this old Long store, and it's when I was on the Historic Commission, and we had gotten funds, but we couldn't find a contractor that could, like, it's been taken down, reconstruction it someplace, like for the money that they allowed us to have. It wasn't enough money to get it done, so didn't happen.
So Concord has on their community preservation plan web page a link to project updates. And then they'll say, every time there's, it looks like a town meeting, and they go back each year, and then under each year is each project they funded, which of course in their case are significantly greater than ours.
Mm.
And then if you click on those, it has a CPA funded project status report. What percentage of the project has been completed? 95%. Describe work completed to date, and it goes into detail about that.
I think they have a 40-hour-a-week CPC person too. No, I really do believe that they do.
Well, I
actually.
think they probably do, given the
Yeah.
number of projects they're funding here, yeah. You don't like those assessors that much, do you?
You know what, that stuff is like, this is more fun because I've never done this, so it's a learning project for me, so I'm enjoying more the challenge of this. The assessor stuff is, 6 years of stuff, so that's not that bad kind of thing. Although I don't know Joanne's job, I've never really been out to measure or anything like that. That would be interesting to know that part of it too, but yes. But no, yes, I do like the assessors. Yeah.
All right. Where's my, do we have a committee member updates? Does anybody have anything they want to update us on? All right. Public comment? There's no public, is there?
No,
All right, that settles that. And is that it?
So the next meeting is our public hearing on the 18th.
Yeah, and Maureen, I'll swing by on Friday.
Okay. Now, you're gonna just, I put that application on here just in case there was going to be a vote, but do you want to just move that to your next agenda?
Yeah.
Okay.
Can we get those dates? Can we get the dates on there? Like that they talked about?
This was the one for the fencing. I thought I just out
Oh,
of
oh, sorry.
caution, I just wanted to put it on there in case there was news that there was going to be a town meeting, therefore you could take a vote to
Right.
recommend it to go onto the warrant, so
Understood.
I
We-
just
We'll bump
wanna
it
get you guys
forward.
stuff on that.
and Wayne and Maureen, you should hopefully now have access to the Google Drive. I
Oh, okay.
think we all had the power to share that, so.
Can you share that with me again?
The address for that?
Yeah, because we haven't used it for a long time, right?
June, do you want it also for your section?
Yeah, let's do that.
Sure,
Because someone from historic ought to be,
eventually.
and in the interim, you can be the interim non-official.
And I'm not a big user of Google Drives, but I think that if we can get used, this will force me to use it, but like all the stuff you're sending us, Maureen, in emails and stuff, if we can get to the point of all the stuff's in there too.
Yeah.
Then
Right.
that will make your life easier. You won't have to keep attaching all
Well,
this stuff. But,
yeah.
but I would say, keep doing what you're doing for now, because I'm still not there.
You know what, honestly, Wayne, I'm not a Google Drive person. I mean, I've had
Yeah.
some access to it just because my kids' schools used it, but I
It's a good
don't,
place- it's a
I'm
good place to
not-
keep the most and all
yeah.
that stuff.
but I will do my best.
We will
We'll
learn
train-
together.
We
We'll
will
train
learn
you yet.
together. Yes,
There's hope.
there's always hope.
All right,
It is.
anything else? We have a motion to adjourn.
So move.
Second,
Second,
thank you, MJ. I was worried. This is non-debatable. We'll take a roll call. MJ,
aye.
Wayne,
Aye.
Eloise, Kim is aye. Eloise said aye. I heard her.
Okay, all right.
Unanimous.